The WHO claims we must prepare for imminent nuclear war. The World Health Organization, WHO, has warned Western nations that they must begin immediately stockpiling medicines and other essential supplies for an imminent nuclear war if it breaks out with Russia. Russia is now engaged in a war against NATO in the West. The European Union's defense chief admits this week as Canada became the 12th country to commit tanks to Ukraine. Stefano Sannino, Secretary General of the EU's External Action Service, warned that Russian President Vladimir Putin had moved beyond his initial special military operation and was moving the war into a different stage. Daily Mail reports Mr. Sannino was speaking as Canada became the latest country to pledge tanks, and Poland said it would give an additional 60 to the 14 it has already committed to the war effort. Spain and Norway are expected to announce how many Leopard 2s they will send to Ukraine in the coming days. Belgium announced a new package of military aid, promising cash, missiles, machine guns, and armored vehicles, but had to admit that it has no main battle tanks to match the efforts from its NATO allies. Ukraine is also seeking Western fourth-generation fighter jets such as the US F-16, although this remains an unlikely prospect. Sannino said Ukraine's allies had been forced to increase and upgrade their military support to Kiev in response to Moscow shifting the focus of the war to the West. Addressing reporters in Tokyo, he said, "I think that this latest development in terms of arms supply is just an evolution of the situation and of the way Russia has started moving the war into a different stage." He said that Russia was making indiscriminate attacks on civilians and cities. The country was desperate to gain momentum on the battlefields of eastern Ukraine before the Western tank squadrons arrive. In the past 48 hours, Moscow's forces have been attempting to break through Ukraine's front lines in the Donbass region. From Thursday night into yesterday morning, Russia also subjected Ukrainian cities to more attacks. Some 47 out of 59 missiles were intercepted, but 11 people understood to be victims of that. Now, in response to the provision of Western tanks to Ukraine, Russia accused U.S. President Joe Biden of pumping weapons into the country when he could be instigating a ceasefire, a plan for peace, in other words. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov also said the promised delivery of Western tanks to Ukraine was evidence of the growing direct involvement of the United States and Europe in the war. Western allies have committed around 150 tanks, Peskov said. There are constant statements from European capitals and Washington, D.C., that the sending of various weapon systems to Ukraine, including tanks, in no way signifies the involvement of these countries or the NATO alliance in hostilities in Ukraine. We categorically disagree with this, and in Moscow everything they're doing is seen as a direct involvement. We see that this is growing. North Korea also condemned the decision by U.S. to supply Ukraine with tanks, saying Washington was escalating a sinister proxy war aimed at destroying Moscow. Russia, that is. Meanwhile, Hungary, which is a NATO member and EU state, suggested Western countries have drifted into becoming active participants in the conflict. Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who has been widely condemned for alleged attempts to reduce democratic freedoms in Hungary, said the West should pursue a ceasefire and peace talks rather than arming Ukraine. He said it started with the Germans saying they were willing to send helmets, but they would not send lethal aid, since that represented participation in the conflict. Now we're at battle tanks, and there are discussions about planes. Hungary has refused to send weapons to Ukraine and has boosted the Kremlin coffers by purchasing Russian gas, oil, and nuclear fuel. Asked if Hungary would get more involved, Orban said, this is out of the question as long as I am Prime Minister, he said. But the other European countries, have already been swept away. If you send weapons, no matter what you say, you are in the war. It comes as Ukraine is to set up drone assault companies within its armed forces in a joint venture with billionaire Elon Musk's satellite communication company. Kiev announced yesterday it had signed off a deal with Starlink satellite communication, which is operated by Elon Musk's SpaceX organization. Ukraine wants to develop a futuristic army of drones to conduct attacks behind Russian lines In a statement on his Facebook page yesterday, Starlink said the most professional Ukrainian servicemen have been chosen to lead the assault companies, which will be equipped with uncrewed aerial vehicles and explosives, that is, drones. Starlink said, "We're doing everything to provide soldiers with modern technologies." Unmanned aircraft have already played a crucial role on both sides since Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February last year. Moscow has used hundreds of Iranian-made suicide drones, quote-unquote, to attack Ukrainian cities, while Kiev's forces have used drones to drop small explosives on Russian forces and to monitor their movements. This is by Sean Adeltimer by News Punch. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box.